Hello friends. This is the Ani Fanfics. How are you all? So we are back with an amazing movie on what if Naruto became the new Witch King. Naruto and Lord of Rings crossover. Summary will be given in the description. But before we begin, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Now let's begin. Naruto was panting, looking at Iruka who was sitting against a tree, bleeding. Mizuki was standing over him, a large shuriken in his hand, smirking evilly. He had convinced Naruto to steal the forbidden scroll and take it to a forest, close to training area 44. He was sure no one would dare come near there. He was wrong, as Iruka followed Naruto, who ran into the forest of death. Mizuki reluctantly followed, but nothing happened, and now he was only 2 steps away from getting the ultimate power of the 4th Hokage, and he'd get away with it, too. Naruto was sweating and cursing himself. If only he'd found something useful in the damned scroll, he'd help Iruka. But all he found was a ring and a note addressed to him. Well, Iruka, looks like it's the last straw for you. But first, I think I'll kill the Kyuubi and force you to watch helplessly. Naruto spat on the ground and looked up at Mizuki defiantly. He wasn't stupid, he knew about the Kyuubi, but he didn't care at this point. Looks like this is it. Looks like I get to see Dad sooner than I thought. I'm just sad I didn't get to meet Mom. Mizuki stalked to Naruto, lifting the shuriken. Bye, little demon. He was stopped in his tracks by rustling in the leaves behind him. He turned around, old fears of the forest reappearing. The figure walked out. It was over 2 meters high, clad in a black cloak, with only a spiky iron helmet visible. It looked at Naruto and then sneered at Mizuki. You will not hurt the Lord, infidel. It said in a hissing voice, and then lopped off Mizuki's head. It then approached Naruto and bowed. I am sorry that I could not arrive sooner, my lord. Who are you? Naruto asked, weary. My name is Camel. I am a specter, a ringworth. Naruto tensed. But I mean you no harm, my lord. Far from it, in fact. I came here to give you your inheritance. You. He turned to Iruka. Inform your leader that he may meet the boy at the tower of Mina's Morgul. He should know where it is. Come, my lord. Naruto hesitantly followed the figure, while Iruka, now having recovered, limped in the direction of the Hokage tower. The wraith led Naruto to a tower in the middle of the forbidden forest. The area around the tower was strange. It was just as alive as the rest, maybe even more so, but it had a more dangerous air around it. As they walked, the shadow explained some things. This forest was once called the land of Angmar. It was held by your ancestor, Murzur, the Witch King of Angmar. The tower was moved here and made the center of the kingdom. He then explained the history of the world and the wraiths. You all know Lotter, so I'm not gonna explain that. When the One Ring was thrown into Mount Doom, Murzur, who had barely survived the encounter with Eowyn, had regained his free will. With great effort, he managed to free the rest of us. Once freed, we gained the power to switch from our specter form to a human form in the likeness of our previous selves. We took the region of Angmar and using old black magic, hid there from the humans. Some 5 years later, our lord was walking unseen through the region of Rohan when he donned his cloak and decided to rest for a little while. Eowyn, who had had a disagreement with her brother over her marriage, him insisting she marry Faramir and her not wanting to, walked in on him just as he put the cloak. She screamed and charged at him with her sword. Flashback, she rushed at him, using all her strength and skill, for she knew she would not survive this battle, but she'd be damned if she didn't take the Witch King with her. They traded blows when she tripped on a stone and dropped her sword. The specter approached her with its sword in its hand. She gulped and closed her eyes, waiting for the finishing blow to come. But nothing happened. She opened her eyes to see a face of a young man with dirty blonde hair wearing the robe, offering her a hand, his sword in its sheath on his belt. Now, why did you attack me, he asked with a smirk. Eowyn blushed from embarrassment. I'm sorry, sir, I had thought you were. You thought I was the Witch King of Angmar. What? How did you know? Because, my dear Eowyn, I am. She narrowed her eyes, but showed no signs of fear. Why did you not kill me then? Because. I did not want to. In the longest time, more years than I dare count, I finally find myself with my own free will. Haha, he started laughing, making Eowyn sweat drop. You have no idea the feeling, my little Rohirrim, of finally doing what I want and what I like. Well, this was fun. Hope we can do it again sometimes. He mounted his horse. Oh, before I go, I'm sorry for what I did. He said in a somber tone. I really am. And he rode off with Eowyn watching him. Then flashback, the two had started meeting once a week at the same place, having sparring matches followed by talking and getting to know each other. After 9 months, Eowyn could no longer go against the wishes of her brother and had to be married. On the day of the wedding, as the bride was getting ready, the Witch King sneaked inside a room, went down on one knee and asked for her hand. Eowyn, having fallen in love with the ex of Vildor, agreed. He used magic to make a copy of her and together they fled to the region of Angmar. There they had a son and died in old age, happy together. The line of the Witch King continued to survive, changing its name to Namikaze with the forming of the hidden villages. His old ring that Soren gave him had vanished, and the rest of the 9 did not feel it wise to put their rings on or use them, as a piece of Soren's soul could still be there. And now we come to you, my young lord. The Wraith said after he finished his story, the both of them now in the library. That ring you have is the main of the 9, the one used by you ancestor. Do you feel that you are strong enough to withstand Soren's corruption and regain all the powers of your ancestor? Naruto thought about it when a voice called. I think you should try it. Naruto turned to the source of the voice, finding his grandfather figure sitting in a chair. Sarutobi? Did you know all this? Only the legends. My, being both a legal descendant of the king of Angmar, as well as the royal line of Rohan. That's quite something. So, what would you do, my lord? Camel asked. Step back. Naruto responded with a smirk, putting the ring on his right ring finger. The ring glowed and Naruto fell to the floor, unconscious. When Naruto woke up, he found himself in a dark, dank sewer. He looked around and went up one path, with pipes above it. He came to a dark gate, in front of which stood a tall, armor-clad individual. His helmet was spiky, and on his right index finger, a golden ring was visible. Hello, young one. He spoke. His voice was surprisingly gentle and, despite the helmet, very clear. I came here to help you control your new powers and do good to the. He was interrupted by a roar and a bang. Naruto looked to the gate to see a giant fox banging against an invisible barrier, snarling and roaring. Don't listen to him, kid. It yelled. He's evil. Never mind the monster. The figure spoke, offering Naruto a hand. Just take my hand and we will begin your path to power. Naruto could swear he could hear him smile. Naruto slowly reached for the offered hand, but pulled him by the wrist and slammed his elbow into his face. Then, he started laughing. I see that the tales of your honeyed tongue are true. Soren. You will not deceive me as you did my ancestor. Be gone from my mind and from my ring, fiend. He imagined a sword and stabbed it through Soren's stomach. The soul piece vanished, screaming. The Kyuubi let out a breath of air it was holding. Good work, Kit. Oh, and what's your story? Naruto raised an eyebrow. And no lies. You know damn well that I can destroy you here and now. The Kyuubi grinned. You got spunk. I like that. And about the whole destroying the village thing. Sorry about that, but I was put under a genjutsu by some creepy snake fag. No use crying over spilt milk. What's done is done, and now the only thing left to do is tear the snake fag a new asshole and pull out his spleen from it. You wanna help? Let's see, on one hand, I have a boring existence staring at one wall of a sewer your entire life, which could be several hundred years or so, and on the other skull-bashing spine-crushing fun. Yeah, real tough call. His voice was oozing sarcasm. I'll take that as a yes. So, what can you do? Well, if you let me play around a little, I can increase all of your sense, as well as speed and strength. I can even change you a little to look like your ancestor. Well, have fun. Just don't fuck up real bad. Gotta go now. See ya. Naruto woke up, seeing Camel and Sarutobi observing him. How did it go, my lord? Camel asked. Gather the rest of the ringworths and tell them to bring their rings. Old man, you should stay for the meeting. Time to meet my generals. The 8 humans walked in and bowed to him before speaking their names. The first was Camel, who had donned his human appearance, as did the rest. Camel was a tall dark-haired man, whose skin tone was slightly darker than Naruto's. He bowed to Naruto and spoke. I am Camel the Easterling. Arise now, Camel, embrace your ring and serve as my advisor and second in command, as you did for my ancestor all those years ago. Next was a large muscular man, larger than any other Naruto had seen. His fiery red hair was short and his blazing eyes fierce. I am Dwar the Dark Marshal. I was once the main general of the Witch King's armies. Arise now, Dwar, and embrace your ring. I have no army for you to lead, but you shall keep your former title nevertheless. The next was a lean man, who looked more like a tracker than a fighter, but had a dangerous air around him. I am Jainder Dawndeath, the tracker general of the Witch King. Arise now, Jainder, and embrace your ring. Track for me as you once did for Rimurzer. Next was a tall man with shaggy black hair. He looked like a dangerous man if pissed off, but otherwise calm and collected. I am Akorahel the Knight of Umber. Chief of the Guard. Arise now, Akorahel, and embrace your ring. Protect me and mine as you did years before. Next was a tall skinny man who had a mad scientist vibe about him, complete with the crazy white hair. I am Hormurath the Undying, chief researcher and mad scientist extraordinaire. Arise now, Hormurath, and embrace your ring. Discover new wonders for the use of the Witch King. Then came the only female rider. She was stunningly beautiful, with long black hair that glossed over, full red lips and large black sensual eyes. I am Adunifal the Beast Mistress. Arise now, Adunifal, and embrace your ring. I have no beasts for you to tame, but you shall keep your former title nevertheless. Then stepped a blonde man with a goatee. I am Ren the Shadow Lord, tactician and spymaster in times of war and peace. Arise now, Ren, and embrace your ring. Construct plans that would lead us to victory over any foe and protect the Witch King from the shadows and eliminate all covert threats to the throne. The final one was a rather tall man with long blonde hair. I am Yuvatha the Horseman, general of the cavalry of Angmar. Arise now, Yuvatha, and embrace your ring. I have no cavalry for you to lead, but you shall keep your former title nevertheless. When that was done, the 8 surrounded Naruto in a semicircle and roared. All hail the new Witch King. The cry was heard throughout Konoha, as well as the Land of Fire. Creatures began to stir in the Forest of Death, and the land began to shake. The mountains on the east of Konoha were ablaze with activity, as well as the only volcano in the Land of Fire. Now old man. Naruto turned to the Hokage. I'm gonna need some time to adjust to the powers and amass my army. How long before the sorting? 2 months, actually. What with Iruka injured, and we'll have to make an investigation into the other teachers. Now I have to go. See you in 2 months, my boy. 2 months, eh? What do you think? It is enough time, my lord. The remains of your forces should be scattered, but there are some in the forest, beasts mostly. The Easterlings are in the mountains to the east, the cavalry of old. The volcano in this land houses some of your fiercest fighters, and the very land may also provide with troops. Very well, here's how it's gonna work. Adunifal, gather the beasts from the forest, tame them if necessary, but always be gentle and kind to them. They are our allies, not our servants. She bowed to her king and left. Yuvatha, get the Easterlings. Same as I said to Adunifal. Ren, get those fiercest warriors and war search for the land troops. They bowed and left too. Hormurath, go into your lab, make some new inventions. I want at least something done by 2 months. Ooh, a schedule, how exciting. The rest of you? He turned to Camel, Akorahil and Jainder. Your job is to train me in all you can. Tactics, leadership, swordplay, tracing, diplomacy, anything. We only have 2 months. Let's make 'em count. 2 months had passed since Naruto took up his position as the Witch King. A few days earlier, the Nazgul he sent out returned, each carrying better news than the last. Flashback, Naruto was sitting in his throne room, his 8 Nazgul in front of him. Before they set out to do their tasks, they had all changed to their original clothes. Report. He ordered them. The first one to step out was Dwar, wearing his old plate armor. My lord, as commanded, I scanned the landscape in search of warriors worthy of your army. I found them in a forest on the edge of Rice country. I present to you the Earthen Warriors. One door opened to reveal 3 sturdy warriors with war-marked faces. They bowed to Naruto and returned to their units. They are as strong and as sturdy as the earth itself. They will make fine foot soldiers. Naruto nodded. Very well done, Dwar. Yuvatha. The Raider General stepped out next, donning his plate armor. My lord, I was successful in locating the Easterling tribes in the mountains. They were a bit reluctant at first, but I managed to convince them. With their horseback riding abilities, they will make an amazing cavalry. 2 Easterlings stepped through the door. The only thing Naruto could see of their faces were black piercing eyes, shining behind the golden helmets. Thank you, Yuvatha. Ren. The Shadow Lord was the next to step out, his tattered cape flowing behind him. My king, I traveled to the volcano, and you'll never believe what I found. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Oh, do tell. Well, as it turned out, Camel's so-called fiercest warriors are actually. The door opened once again, and Ren got out of the way, so his lord could see the warriors he had brought them. Naruto could not believe his eyes. There, at the door, stood, or rather floated, an angel, his robe black and his massive wings shining white, with a sword in his right hand. The Dark Angel. Ren chuckled. Indeed, my lord. I had a similar reaction when I saw them first, too. I actually didn't need to convince them. It seems they already know of you, lord. Amazing, Ren. And you, Adunifal. The Beastmistress stepped out, wearing her armor. That's some armor anyway, she smiled to Naruto. Although I did not bring as interesting subjects as Ren did, I believe my time was not wasted either, my liege. Apart from the regular assortment of giant tigers, gargantuan bears, spiders, scorpions and some really big eagles, I managed to find a den of hellhounds guarded by a Cerberus. I managed to tame them and bring them here. But I also found a rather interesting sight deep in the forest, Millard, that bears the mark of the Witch King. I felt it wise to await your judgment before going inside. Naruto nodded, murmuring to himself. He then turned to Camel, who was wearing white robes. All soldiers have been housed in the lower levels of the tower and have been sorted, you might say, 1 level for each. Thankfully, when Urazer built this tower, he made it big enough to house several legions. Camel spoke, knowing the question on the Witch King's mind. All of them have armors and weapons, apart from the beasts Adunifal brought. At this, Hormurath spoke. My lord, I have started forging armors for the beast. Now the only thing left is to see to armor and weapons for you. The previous Witch King had an impressive set, my finest work I might say. But they are not in the tower. They could be in that cave Dunifil found. I'll have to explore it. Alright, listen up. Dwar organize some of the Easterlings and Earthens and start making this damned forest defendable. Start by establishing guard posts, one every mile, in the trees, and get some men to watch our borders, especially the one with Konoha. No one is to pass without my knowledge. Understood? Yes, my liege. Dwar bowed and went to his task. Ren, get at least one Earthen as a spy in every hidden village, major or not, including Konoha. I want to know what the rest of the world is doing, yesterday. The spymaster bowed and left. The Korahil, get a couple of each sentient species and establish the royal guard. No more than 10. Hormurath continue forging the armors. I will come see you when I get back. At Dunifil, Camel, the three of us will go to that cavern. The cavern was spacious, and each of the two walls at the entrance were branded with the emblem of the Witch King, a red spiked helmet outline on a black field, which Naruto had decided to keep as his own. The cavern only had one chamber, with a pond in the middle. The three wraiths approached the pond cautiously when a moonbeam lit the very center of the pool. Naruto gasped when it uncovered a stall with a set of armor and a blade in front of it. That is the armor and blade of Murizer. Looks like you won't have to get a new one after all. Then flashback, now Naruto stood in front of the academy, donned in his new armor, with his blade his hip. Hai grinned under his mask and went inside. Iruka sighed as he tried to quiet down the classroom. It was time to sort the new genin into teams. Only problem was, Naruto was nowhere to be seen. Alright, that's enough. He shouted using his big head technique, which seemed to work. Now it's time to sort out the teams. Team 1. He was interrupted by the door slamming open and, to the shock of everybody present, a tall, armored figure wearing helmet with a sword on its left hip stood in the doorway. Who are you? Iruka asked, slightly shivering on the inside, somewhat scared of the figure. He, for the figure was obviously male, slowly raised his hands to his helmet and took it off just as slowly. The helmet came off to reveal Naruto. Or, rather, what looked like Naruto. For one, he was several inches taller than the old Naruto, now standing at 6'3". His hair color had also changed, along with his style. It was now dirty blonde instead of the bright sun-kissed blonde he used to have. His whisker marks had also disappeared, and his face was more lean and angular, and held a royal air. He nodded to Iruka and leaned against the wall, waiting to be called. He brushed his hair out of his face, and the rest of the genin saw a silver circlet on his forehead that looked as though it had been made from multiple rope-like parts, with a shape in the front that looked like the helmet he wore, his sigil. Iruka continued. Team 1 Team 7. Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno and Sai with Hada Kakashi Sensei. Team 8. Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburam and Hinata Hyuga with Yuhi Kurenai Sensei. As Team 9 is still in circulation from last year, Team 10 will be Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akamichi and Ino Yamanaka with Sarutobi Asuma Sensei. Iruka Sensei, you didn't call Naruto Baka. Sakura sneered. True, I didn't. That's because Naruto will not have a team. Ha. See that, Naruto Baka, you will never be as great as Sasuke-kun. She screeched, while Sasuke grinned. Humph, dope. The two were suddenly hit with so large killing intent that the rest of the genin felt it, too. As I was saying. Iruka continued, Naruto still radiating killing intent, although somewhat lessened. The reason Naruto will not have a team is that he will be the apprentice of Anko Mitarashi. Your senseis will meet you in an hour. Goodbye and good luck. You're gonna need it. Just as Naruto closed his eyes to relax, a presence made him open them. Sasuke was standing in front of him, a scowl on his face. Oh, why do you get your own sensei when an Uchiha like me has to deal with a team of dead weights? He had a confused look when Naruto just waved his left hand in a no motion. What he didn't know was that Ren, who had been following Naruto, was standing in the shadows behind him, his dagger aimed at his throat, ready to cut it open for disrespecting his lord. Because, Sasuke-chan, you do not know the meaning of the phrase teamwork. Once you learn the true meaning behind it, you will also understand why I get my own sensei. Ren. Sasuke just sneered thinking Naruto lost his mind. My name is Sasuke Uchiha, dope. I know it is, Naruto said coldly. Now shut up and stop interrupting. Ren, get out here right now. The figure of Ren appeared behind Sasuke, scaring the ever-loving shit out of him, though he would ever admit it. My lord, how did you know? Naruto just raised an eyebrow, and Ren chuckled sheepishly. Right, forget I asked. What do you need of me? In 1 hour I am to meet my sensei, as you have heard. You have half an hour to find out as much as you can about her. Start with the Hokage, he should know at least something about his own ninja. Get going. As you command, my king. Ren disappeared. Oh, why did he call you a king? Sasuke snarled. Because, my dear Sasuke, I am a king. I am the Witch King of Angmar. The last sentence he spoke with such power and authority that almost none of the genin doubted his words. Those that did were Kiba, Sakura and Sasuke, of course. Ha, a dope like you a king. Don't make me laugh. Sasuke-kun should be king, not a nobody loser like you. Humph, give me that crown, dope. It will look much better on the forehead of an Uchiha. Naruto, who had once again closed his eyes and leaned against the wall, suddenly opened them, but they were not warm blue eyes anymore. His eyes were now blazing red, with slitted pupils. He growled and kicked Sasuke in the chest with his armored boot, sending him out of the window on the opposite side and into the middle of the village. He ignored Sakura's screeching and slowly walked after him. The villagers and ninja all gathered around Sasuke, forming a wide circle. The civilians were outraged that someone dared to hurt Uchiha-sama, and the ninja were amused to see it finally happening. But no one expected to see Naruto in his armored form walking to Sasuke, his hand resting on the pommel of his sword. By the time he got there, the Hokage had arrived, along with the entire council, and all the Jounin senseis. When some of the civilian council members tried to kill Naruto for hurting the Uchiha, they were stopped by the Hokage. He turned to the ninja council members and senseis. "Watch carefully," he said. "This is Naruto's new power. I believe he will explain everything himself." He smirked. Naruto got within 10 feet from Sasuke and stopped. He then spoke again, his voice filled with unimaginable power and authority, and his posture screaming royal. "You dare question my origins?" he roared. The ninja were now wondering what he thought about that, some coming to the conclusion themselves, knowing Minato personally. "You dare question my right to rule Angmar?" Now people were very confused. "I call you now, Kerr, to a duel of high stakes. I stake my kingdom and my honor on this one fight. Will you face me, or will you run away?" he said, donning his crown helm. Sasuke got up and drew a kunai, charging Naruto. Most civilians laughed at the demon, thinking that, even if his claim was true, it wouldn't matter as Sasuke would defeat him. Naruto stood still, waiting for Sasuke to approach. Not a second too soon, he drew his sword from its scabbard and deflected the kunai. Sasuke charged again, while Naruto backhanded him with his left hand, launching him into the building on the opposite side. Before Sasuke could gather his senses, Naruto appeared in front of him, his blade poised on the Uchiha's neck. "I win, Uchiha." He turned around and walked away. Sasuke scowled before running through hand seals, sending a fireball at the Witch King's back. As the fireball impacted, the civilians cheered while the ninja gasped, and there was even a silent cry, although nobody knew who it came from. Whoever guesses who cried gets to suggest some ideas for the story that will most likely be added, unless they aren't reasonable. Then, they were all shocked into silence by a chuckle so sinister sounding that it was as if it came from the Kyuubi itself. The flame died down to reveal Naruto completely unharmed, not even his cloak was singed. In fact, his armor seemed to glow in the fire, giving it an even more impressive look. His chuckle then turned to laughter worth of the Dark Lord himself. "You whelp. Do you call that a fireball? Let me show you how a real king does magic." And with no word and no move other than thrusting his hand forward, a dark red flame flew from his left hand and impacted Sasuke in the chest, who started screaming a second later. Naruto then turned to the others standing around him. Every member of the village was present. "Hear me now, people of Konoha," he called. The dangerous presence all but disappeared, only leaving enough trace to know that he is one not to be fooled around with, and his regal presence returning once more. "I am Namikaze Naruto, son of Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina, descendant of Murasur, the first Witch King and Lady Ioan of Rohan, leader of the 9 Ringwraiths, High Lord and Master of Minas Morgul and Witch King of Angmar. So I say. Is there any who wish to challenge my right?" His voice, along with his demeanor, made even the maddest of civilians or ninja unwilling to challenge him. Seeing none step forward, he continued. "My kingdom of Angmar on the borders of this village is off limits to all but those I approve of. And, also, my sensei, Mitarashi Anko, is under the protection of myself and my kingdom and forces. Any who dare harm her will suffer a fate far worse than death." His dangerous eye flashed, as did the depths of his helm, making his point known to all. Anko, hearing this, smiled. It was not a usual crazy, bloodthirsty smile, but a true gentle smile, only observed by her best friend Kurenai, standing next to her. Some of the members of the council, the civilians, did not like what they saw and heard. So they disregarded the Hokage's orders and charged Naruto while his back was turned. They were all knocked away by 8 figures. The first one, clad in plate armor, spoke. "I am Akorahil the Knight of Umber, chief of the High Guard of Angmar. To get to my king, you must go through me first." Hamel spoke next. "I am Camel the Easterling, advisor to His Majesty the Witch King of Angmar. I will not allow you to harm him." Adunifil was the next one. "I am Adunifil the Beastmistress, tamer of the wild in service of the Witch King. I will kill you before you lay a hand on my lord." Then it was Dwar's turn. "I am Dwar the Dark Marshal, High General and Supreme Commander of the Army of Angmar, second only to Lord Naruto himself. You shall not pass." Ren spoke after Dwar. "I am Ren the Shadow Lord, Spymaster and Tactician of the Witch King. You will die before you take another step." Then came Hormurath's turn. "I am Hormurath the Undying. Come, and I will feed you to my inventions. Yavatha was after Hormurath. I am Yavatha the horseman, general of the cavalry of Angmar. I will trample you if you so much as intent on harming my king. And, finally, it was Inder's turn. I am Jai Inder Dawndeath, tracker general of the army of Angmar. One step forward, and I will use all of you as stands for my arrows. Stand down, Ringworths. We are done here. As he spoke those words, all the Nazgul but himself and Ren, and all the ninja and civilians bar from Anko scattered. Anko spoke to Naruto in flirty voice. Naruto-kun, meet me at the entrance to training ground 44 as soon as you can, okay? He just nodded and she poofed to the meeting place. Naruto then turned to Ren and commanded him to speak. My lord, from mere observation of her I was able to determine that she likes Dango and Sake and that she is crazy and bloodthirsty. But I believe the latter to be a mere mask made to hide her true emotions. I have also found out that she is the one-time student of the snake Sanin Orochimaru and that she is hated in the village because of that fact, branded as a traitor and a snake whore, in the words of the villagers. It may take some time to gently break down her mask and reveal her true self to you, but I believe that with today's action you have started on the right path. With your permission, my lord. Naruto nodded and he bowed and left. Right path, I certainly hope so. Mitarashi Anko. Such a charming and beautiful woman she is. I wonder. Okay, kid, time for introductions. Anko said once Naruto got to the clearing in front of one of the gates of the Forest of Death, as these people would call it. I'll have to make a better wall around it, with only 2 gates. Why don't you go first, sensei? Naruto said taking off his helm. Why not? My name is Mitarashi Anko. I like Dango. She stopped when she heard rustling and, turning to Naruto, discovered that it came from a paper bag, the insides of which caught her attention. For Naruto had pulled a couple of sticks of Dango and 2 bottles of Sake from it. Want some? He asked, giving her 2 sticks and a bottle. She squealed and glumped, happily munching on her Dango. Oh, Naruto-kun, my favorite. How did you know? He chuckled. It is a king's business to know things. Well, thank you very much. She smiled and kissed him on the cheek. Once they both had their fill and they introduced themselves, they just sat there, talking. Shouldn't we do some test or something? Nah, that's boring. Besides, I think we'll work just fine. She paused for a second. You mentioned several times that you were a king, but where's this Angmar of yours? You mind if I see it? She seemed a little hesitant. Sure. Naruto smiled. Follow me. To her surprise, he took her through the gate and into the Forest of Death. They walked through the forest calmly, surprising Anko as she had expected at least some wild beasts to attack them. She stiffened a little when she felt several eyes on her, but Naruto calmed her down. In a clearing near the center of the forest, Naruto suddenly stopped, his hand resting on the pommel of his sword. He motioned for her to stop and scan the surroundings. He then called. Show yourselves. 5 figures appeared out of the forest. They were all wearing identical gray cloaks with hoods, green scarves over their lower faces, and a quiver with arrows on their backs. Anko noticed Naruto was surprised for the first time today. Rangers? What are you doing here? The ranger in the center of the group stepped forward, and Anko noticed Naruto's hand grip the pommel tightly. Using her ninja training, she silently and stealthily pulled a kunai from her pouch and hid it in her sleeve. You're Naruto, the Witch King of Angmar, this realm, correct? Yes. I am Naruto, and this is the realm of Angmar. But you have not answered my question. What are 5 rangers of the north doing in my kingdom? They then did something that Naruto never expected. They all kneeled before him. My lord Naruto, we the rangers of the north come to swear allegiance to you and yours for as long as you have need of us. Naruto looked even more surprised than before, but soon hid it under a mask of indifference. Guards. He called and 4 Easterlings jumped down from the trees, surprising Anko yet again. Escort these 5 and any other rangers in the forest to Mina's Morgul and give them rooms and food if they so wish. You. He turned to the lead ranger. I am sorry, but for the sake of my kingdom I cannot just believe you like that. But I promise that if you come to my throne room during the day, you and I shall discuss this matter further. The ranger bowed. I understand, and I thank you for the comforts you have provided. We shall talk more of this before the day is out. And they left with the Easterlings. Naruto beckoned Anko forward, and they went again. Wait. Anko called after a few minutes. You mean the Forest of Death is Angmar? Yes, this is my kingdom. Is there a problem with that? He asked her. She grinned. Nope. This just so happens to be my favorite place in the village. Is that so? Well, you're welcome to a room in the tower if you ever want. She stopped for a second before nodding and smiling gently. Thanks, Naruto-kun. She murmured, but he heard her regardless. He smiled gently at her and led her to tower. At the tower, he introduced her to his Nazgul. While they were talking, Naruto was sitting at his throne, thinking. My lord, what troubles you? Camel asked him. These rangers. They were against Soren and my ancestor in the Third Age. What could they want with me now? Do they know the results of the destruction of the One Ring? These are hard questions to find answers to, my lord. You will have to try and solve them to the best of your ability. Here they come. 3 rangers walked inside. The leader, one holding a long wooden box and one carrying a small wolf cub in his arms. The leader bowed and lowered his hood and scarf. He had long black hair and a black beard. His ears were slightly pointy and he had a shiny jewel on his forehead. He spoke. My lord Naruto, I am Elrond, direct descendant of Aragorn the Lesser and Lady Arwen Undomiel, named in honor of her father, the half-elf Elrond. I am the current leader of the Rangers. There are not that many of us, only 200, and I have brought all my people with me. But why? Why would a descendant of King Elessar serve a descendant of the Dark Commander of Mordor? As you are no doubt aware, King Elessar was indeed far-sighted. He had seen the encounter of Murazar and Lady Eowyn of Rohan, along with Lady Undomiel, and their subsequent falling in love. They had wanted to help the couple, but as the king of Gondor he could do little. The only thing he could do was try to stall the wedding of Faramir and Eowyn. Although that was the only thing King Elessar could do. Elrond continued his tale. He did leave some instructions, along with the story of the Witch King, to his descendants, stating that if the descendant of Murazar is to take his throne, the Rangers pledge their allegiance, for he will be a fair and just ruler. This were his words. From the shadows he will rise, a war with darkness he will wage to keep the enemy from his prize, to cast him back into his cage. Hear my words, O Northern Rangers, swear your allegiance to the Witch King, as his road will be ripe with dangers, and victory to him you may bring. As he had spoken, so we have done. I ask you, will you accept our forces? For a long time nobody moved, and Naruto thought with his eyes closed. Suddenly, he opened them and stood up. Camel. Yes, my lord. See to it that the Rangers are granted appropriate quarters, food and medicine if there are any ill. Hormirath, forge some badges with the sigil of Angmar for them to wear. Akorahil, include some of them in the High Guard. Get up, Elrond. He got to the ranger and held out his hand. And welcome to Angmar. Thank you, my king. Elrond got up, shaking hands with Naruto. You will continue to lead your rangers in all aspects, but you will answer to me and war in times of battle, for he is the High General. And what of these two? He asked, pointing to the other 2 rangers. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. These are the gifts the rangers brought for you. The wolf cub is of a special breed of wolves that grow and live as long as their partners do, and have great ability in battle. I hope she will aid you in the road ahead. The little cub jumped out of the ranger arms and walked to Naruto. She sniffed his hand, yipped and jumped in his arms, licking his cheek. Cute. I'll call you Vala. It means angelic power in Quenya. And this. Elrond turned to the other ranger. Is a legacy of King Elessar himself, instructed to be given to you. He said that you will know why after you possess it for a few days. He opened the box and stepped away. As soon as Naruto's eyes fell on the sword, he gasped. The Nazgul were curious and looked at the blade, each one of them having a look of shock after seeing it. Anko also saw the blade, but didn't know what the fuss was about. Angural, Naruto muttered. The flame of the west. Bet you weren't expecting that, but why would you give me a sword that is rightfully yours? Elrond chuckled. This sword belongs to one who can wield it, and I am no such man. It has a mind of its own, sort of, and is very picky about who wields it. If you can pick it up without getting shocked, it is yours. Naruto slowly reached for the sword and grasped the pommel. The jewel on it shone with white light before dying down. Naruto picked up the sword and checked its balance. This is an amazing sword. He said with awe. And I thank you for giving it to me. But now if you'll excuse me, I have some other business to attend to. Of course, my lord. I thank you once again for your hospitality and for allowing us to join your army. Naruto nodded and the 3 rangers walked away. Naruto. Oh, Anko, what do you need? What's so special about that sword? She asked. It's a very long story and I don't have time right now to tell it, but Campbell can lead you to the library and tell you of the history of the sword and the Witch King if you so wish. She nodded and Campbell led her to the library. What a day. Naruto sighed. 3 months had passed from the day the Rangers joined Angmar's growing army. Despite Elrond's warning, Naruto still didn't know why he had gotten Angural. He kept the sword sealed inside a seal on his palm. Anko had talked to the Hokage the next day and got him to agree to let her and Naruto have a leave of duty for 3 months so they can train in Angmar. She had taught him some seals she knew, but they mainly just worked out to keep in shape. Also, they could both be seen in the library daily, Anko studying the history of Angmar, Mina's Morgul, the One Ring. Basically anything she could get her hands on, growing more and more interested with each story. Naruto, on the other hand, was in the back of the library, reading old dusty tomes. The tomes he read were leather-bound and unmarked, save for some elven runes that together spelled out Mithrandir. Now we find Naruto sitting on his throne, thinking silently, as he had started doing more and more these days. He was thinking on his next move when his thoughts were invaded by pictures of a very special woman. Suddenly, his thought pattern was cut in half by a noise in one of the corners of the throne room. He looked around and noticed that it was already dark. A shadow in the wall caught his eye. He narrowed his eyes towards it and commanded it to step forward. The man stepped into the light. At first, he had thought it was only Elrond and was about to tell him not to creep on others when he noticed a few differences between the Elrond he knew and this figure in the darkness. While Elrond looked like he was in his 20s, while in reality he was over 50, this figure looked a little older than 40. But both had the same height, weight and facial construction, though Naruto noticed the eyes of this one were glowing slightly and his ears were not pointy. The figure also had a sword strapped to his hip and a crown on his head. And he was dressed in the black-silver uniform of the white tree. Then, Naruto's eyes showed recognition and he bowed slightly, showing respect to the man that was none other than Aragorn, son of Arathorn, King Elessar of Gondor. "What brings you here, King Elessar? Actually, how are you even here?" Naruto asked, still not moving from his seat. "I am not, young King of Angmar. What you see before you is a piece of my soul I had, with the help of Gandalf, sealed inside my sword that now lies within your palm. And why are you here? To talk to you? To explain a few things I know you've been wondering about. Ask your questions, and I will do my best to answer. Why did you help me so much? Did you not hate my ancestor? To tell you the truth, I did not. Even when the Witch King stabbed Frodo at Weathertop, I did not really hate him. I always had a feeling that he too was just a pawn in a game. A greater pawn, but a pawn nonetheless. And my experience taught me to trust my instincts. And it seems that I was right, as I had observed from the Palantir of Orthanc. My wife and I saw everything, and we wanted to help as much as we could, but our hands were tied. But why leave Anduril to me, and not to your descendants? Why tell the Rangers to join Angmar? I cannot tell you much, for that would be speaking of the future, but what I can tell you is that a great challenge will await you in the future. Perhaps as great as what befell me. But you have the help of your Nazgul, of my Rangers and of that Anko woman of yours." Aragorn's eyes seemed to shine even more when he said that, but Naruto had no idea why. "You will need Anduril in the days to come. I guess I am to thank you, then." Naruto sighed, rubbing his temple. "Don't thank me just yet, I still have a few gifts to give you. First, when you have time enough, travel to the land now known as Wave Country. There, you will find one of the ancient fortresses of Gondor still standing strong. That fortress and everything in it I give to you. Second, there are still some people who would join you, as I had advised them to. Far to the southwest of here, in the mountainous region live the remaining members of the Sons of Durin. Yes, there are still some dwarves left on this world. But that is not all. The great field of the now named vegetable country houses some of the members of your own ancestral people, at least one of them. So the dwarves, the Rohirrim, the Easterlings, the Earthens, Black Angels and your rangers. As well as beasts. This will be a formidable army." Naruto grinned. "But that is not all." Aragorn snickered at Naruto's shocked expression. "There's more. Rejoice, Naruto, for not all of the Elder have left for Valinor." "What? It is true. Some are on this land still, waiting for the rise of the Witch King. Now that you have taken the position, they will soon find you." Naruto chuckled, which soon turned to full-blown laughter. "And the Elder, too. You have given me much, Aragorn, son of Arathorn. How may I repay you? Just endure, young Naruto, and watch out for what's left of my family. I hope I don't see you soon." And he vanished. Naruto then felt shaking and realized he had his eyes closed. And someone was calling his name. "Naruto?" He opened his eyes to reveal Anko. Something wrong? We need to go to the Hokage today. Our 3 months vacation is over and we have to get to active duty now." "That's so? Let's go then." "Ah, Team Kick-Ass," Saratobi said when the two walked into the door. There was another team there who were bug-eyed at the name, while their sensei just stared at Anko with a raised eyebrow, along with Naruto. Anko rubbed her head sheepishly and greeted the other sensei. "Hey, Kurenai-chan. How's it going?" "I'm fine, Anko. So this is your famous student?" "I'm famous now." Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Certainly. What, with being the son of the Yondaime, not to mention beating the oh-so-powerful Sasuke Uchiha, you thought you wouldn't be the talk of the day. Everybody's been talking about His Majesty the Witch King of Angmar." During the exchange, Kiba started getting angrier and angrier. First it was because his hot sensei was paying more attention to the dope than a real man like him. Delusional, much. Then, it quickly changed to a feeling mixed between rage and jealousy at the fact that the dope actually was a king instead of someone who was better for the title. Like him. But, luckily, just as he was about to open his mouth, Saratobi beat him to the punch, coughing to get the others' attention. "Now that the meet and greet part is over, I'd like to tell you why you're all here." Seeing that he got their attention, he continued. 1 week ago I sent Team 7 to Wave Country on a mission that was supposed to be a C rank, but they were intercepted by the Demon Brothers of the Mist, and the mission got bumped up to B rank at least. So I'm sending you 6 as support. Questions? Yes, I have a few. First off, why did you send a 3-month genin team on a C-rank mission? Despite being led by Kakashi, they're still too inexperienced. Naruto asked. The council pushed for the Uchiha to go. They had wanted the last of the noble house to outshine some upstart from a forgotten country. The FT, noble house my metal-plated arse. But why 2 teams? You know Anko and I would be more than enough for this mission. Because Naruto, my boy, technically you are not a Konoha resident and neither is Anko since she changed her residency to your tower. So the council requests at least one Konoha team accompany you if you go outside the village on missions given by the Hokage. So I'm gonna have brats shadowing me everywhere when I go on missions. No, the council agreed that the requirement would be only for the first 5 times. That was the other end of the Uchiha agreement. Ugh, fine then, when do we leave? We'll leave in 1 hour. Come on, team. Kurenai said as she and her team left. At the tower, Anko and Naruto were in the throne room, both already packed for the mission. So the council wants to spy on me, eh? That won't do, not at all. Naruto murmured as he paced in front of the throne. So what will you do? Anko asked. They want to know my secrets. Let them try and find out. But as for me, I shall know all of theirs. Ren. All of the Nazgul were already there, wanting to know the new turn of events. The Shadow Master stepped forth. I want to know everything and anything about each member of the entire council, including Old Man Saratobi and the Shinobi Council members. But I especially want dirt on the civilian council and the advisors. I want to know how many times a minute they breathe, where they piss, who they fucked last Tuesday, everything. And try not to get caught. Ren chuckled and left, bowing. Inder, Elrond, take 3 rangers and follow us silently, just in case. Camel, you're in charge until I get back. He whistled. Vala. The now much larger wolf ran to Naruto, who scratched her behind the ears. Over the 3 months, she had grown from a cub to an adult wolf in record time, now reaching to Naruto's waist. Naruto told her that in a month or so, he could even ride her into battle. She seemed to like the idea very much. I have a mission, Vala, and I'm taking you with me. She yipped and jumped on him, throwing him to the floor and started licking his face. Alright, enough. Let's go. We're late. They met with teammate at the gate and left. On the way to Wave, Naruto noticed Kiba eyeing Anko's rear while his dog Akamaru was doing the same with Vala. But what really pissed him off was, when they stopped for a short break, Akamaru trying to jump Vala from the back and Kiba leering at Anko's ass, slowly approaching. But Akamaru was met with a jaw snapping at him and 2 angry eyes of a very large wolf pissed off and Kiba was grabbed by the back of his shirt and flung into the nearest tree. He looked up, meeting Naruto's helmless eyes, and, at that point, he looked so much like a powerful king pissed off that Kiba almost wished he'd put the damned helmet on. You will keep your mangy mud away from my little Vala, Kerr. Do you understand? Why should I? If he wants that bitch to be his mate, then he deserve. He was cut off by another slam into the tree by Naruto, whose eyes glowed even brighter. I said. Do you understand? If the mangy pest tries that one more time, I will castrate it before shoving both its newly cut balls and dick down its throat. He then drew closer and growled dangerously next to Kiba's ear, speaking in a voice only the dog boy could hear. And you will keep your eyes to yourself and not Anko's rear, or else I will do the same to you as to your dog. Understood? He hissed the last part in some menacing language, but somehow Kiba managed to understand it. Why yes. Kiba said shakily. Good. Now let's go. They got to the area where Team 7 encountered the Demon Brothers. Akamaru sniffed around, doing all he could to seem important to Vala, who just ignored him. Turning around, Kurenai saw a figure appearing behind Naruto. She was about to warn him when he spoke calmly. I thought I told you to stay hidden, Elrond. The figure of Elrond bowed before Naruto, before speaking. Indeed, my lord, and I am sorry for disobeying your orders. But we have scanned the area and have found tracks not of either Kakashi or his team going after them to Wave after the ordeal here was over. Therefore, I have reason to believe that the Demon Brothers followed after they recovered from the fight. Sensei, we're not seriously believing these guys just cause the dope says so. Kiba asked Kurenai. The ranger looked pissed off, but one move from his lord calmed him down. Tell me, Kerr, how well can you track? Naruto asked. I am the best in the village. I asked you. How well can you track? Now answer me. I can track any animal anywhere there is grass and no rain. Naruto laughed, mocking him. And that is it. Pathetic. Now let me tell you how well my Dunedain can track. They can follow any track of any creature, be it human, animal or other, in any terrain and any weather. Even the slightest indentation in the hardest grass is enough for them. And Elrond is the best of them. So, when he says the enemies have left, they have left. Now, Elrond. He turned from the red-faced Kiba to the ranger. Come with me. Anko, I'll be back in a little while, I need to speak with Elrond about something. She nodded and the two left. When Kiba tried to follow secretly, he was hoisted in the air by a grinning Anko. Going somewhere? She pulled out a kunai. Kiba fainted. Meanwhile, Elrond and Naruto were walking, Elrond waiting for his lord to speak. Finally, Naruto spoke after they were a mile away from the others. Listen carefully, Elrond. I have a task for you, and only you. Somewhere in Wave there is an ancient fortress. So ancient that it stood there from the days of the Northern Kingdom. I have been given that fortress and everything in it, but now I need you to find it. Find it and then come for me. Do not enter on your own. It could be dangerous, so get me first. Yes, Lord Naruto. Consider it done. Naruto watched as Elrond vanished into the trees. Eager, isn't he? Time to get back to Anko and the others, I guess. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he scanned the pond where Vala had picked up tracks. He looked at the scrap trees, then the wet ground and then the sky, and concluded there was a fight going on there. The fight? He said, as Kiba and his dogs started to strut around and sniff here and there. What was that, Naruto? Kurenai and Anko turned to him. There was a fight here, 2 ninja, down in rank probably, of water and lightning types. Ha! How could you possibly know that, dope? You, Kiba, are an idiot. Look closely around. The scene tells you everything, if you're willing to listen. Actually, Naruto, if you don't mind, I'd like to know how you came to that conclusion. Kurenai said, interested in what the Witch King had to say. Fine. Which part? You mentioned a fight. Kurenai said. There are remains of chakra in the air, and the field itself suggests a fight. And how did you know they were Jounin? And the elements? Kurenai asked again, her amazement rising as each point was cleared. See the trees? There are burn marks on them. But the marks aren't big or severe enough to belong to a fire attack, hence it was lightning. And the ground in front of the pond is wet, hence the water. And the Jounin. Can a Genin or even a Chunin get training in elemental manipulation? That was amazing, Naruto-san. Hinata complimented him, to the ever-raising jealousy of Kiba. Yeah. Naruto's the best. Anko cheered, making Naruto chuckle. Binder. I want you to find out which way they went. There was silence a few minutes as the others looked around the forest to find the shadow Naruto spoke to. Then, there was a snap in the southwest direction. That way. Naruto said. How do you know, dope? Kiba sneered. Jinder can, if he wants to, be completely invisible in the forest. He isn't the Ranger General of Angmar for nothing. For him to make a sound like that accidentally is as impossible as it is for Asuma to stop smoking. Therefore, that is the way we must go. Kiba wanted to argue more, but when Kurenai agreed with the direction, he had no choice but to follow. As Naruto had claimed, after 2 leagues of walk they found themselves at the village of Wave, a small poor settlement next to the sea that owed all its life to it. Although it was once a rich, prosperous community, it had been bled dry by a shipping magnate called Gato. An evil, envious midget of a man that took all of Wave as his own. And that did not sit well with the great Witch King. Anko noticed Naruto's frown increase as they walked to the house that held Kakashi's scent. She understood why her apprentice was that way and gently squeezed his plate-covered hand, which she was sure he couldn't feel. However, she failed to notice a small smile cross his lips and eyes as she did so and disappear a moment later. Naruto knocked on the door and was met by a fist he managed to catch, coming from the Uchiha. He quickly scanned the room, noticing the boy's teammates and clients, but no sign of the sensei. Let me go, dope. Shut up, Uchiha. Where is your sensei? Kakashi-sensei is upstairs, in bed. Haruno Sakura answered for the brooding boy. Shut up, Sakura, no one is to tell them anything. I am in charge now. Wrong, Uchiha. Kurenai and Anko here both have seniority over you, and I over them. I could take over the mission any time I wished, and it would be well within my right to do so, but I shall let Kurenai handle things. But for now, you Genin shall stay here and keep an eye out for trouble, and my Dunedain shall keep an eye on you. Meanwhile the senseis and I shall go see Kakashi. Miss, what might be your name? He asked a young woman with a small smile, making her blush, making Anko get a strange feeling. Tsunami, ninja-san. I am not a ninja, Tsunami. Can you take us to Kakashi? She nodded and led them up. She them bowed and left. Naruto looked at the sleeping form of the masked ninja. He took off his gauntlet and held the back of his hand to the man's forehead. He then frowned and lifted his eyelids. He growled and checked his pulse. He is sick, but it is no normal illness. He did not react to anything I did, and ninjas are known as very light sleepers. My conclusion is that he was poisoned. But by who? Kurenai asked. One of his own genin. We shall soon find out. Come. They returned down and called Tsunami to the living room, which held all the genin. Tell me, Tsunami, did you prepare all the food for Kakashi while he was up? Yes, I do all the cooking. And did you carry it to him? No, the nice pale child volunteered to every time. She said, turning to said child only to find him missing. There was a thud heard outside, and Elrond walked in holding Sai, the pale one, by the scuff of his neck. Hey, Lord Naruto, look what I found. You need him. Nice work, Elrond. Dunedain. Two rangers appeared in front of them. Keep an eye on this one, do not let him get away. Treat him as a prisoner. Naruto Baka, what are you doing? Sakura screeched as the rangers carried Sai outside. Without him Sasuke-kun can never become a Chunin. No, he was poisoning your sensei. Now stay silent or I will make sure you never speak again. Sakura nodded frightfully and shut up. Tell me, Tsunami, do you know the plant Athelas? Tsunami had a thoughtful expression. No, I've never heard of a plant like that. How about kingsfoil? Yeah, that's a weed. They are the same. Do you have any of it? No. Sai fine, then can you get me a bowl of hot water? She nodded and went to the kitchen. Elrond, go find some Athelas. Within 5 minutes, he had all he needed and called all of them to Kakashi's room. As they all came in, he took some of the plants, crushed them in his hands and threw them into the water. The room was immediately bathed by a rich, healthy smell that Anko found very addictive and somewhat familiar, but she couldn't for the life of her figure out from where. She then looked to Naruto and, using her keen ninja senses, noticed that he had the same scent, mixed somewhat with one of a wolf and stone and metal, forming his own unique scent, but with the Athela's part still dominant. She smiled. Naruto dipped his fingers in the water slightly before holding them to Kakashi's forehead, getting it wet. Immediately, Kakashi's somewhat irregular breathing straightened and Naruto sighed as he felt the older man go into a slumber. He's fine now and the poison is nullified. He's resting. How did you do that, Lord Naruto? Elrond spoke. I know of the properties of Athelas, as do all rangers, but you forget, Elrond, that my ancestor was one of the High Lords before receiving the Ring of Power. I am of Numenorean descent as well. Did you find it? He nodded. Fine then. When he wakes up, tell Kakashi that I have left on some Angmar business and will be back as soon as I can. He turned to leave, followed by Elrond. Hey, Naruto, can I come? Anko called after him. Sure, let's go. So, this is it. What is this? Anko said, making Naruto and Elrond stare at her. She just chuckled and scratched the back of her head sheepishly. Now that I think about it. Elrond said. I have no idea what this is either. Naruto chuckled. You should both read up on your history. Let's see. There is Angmar. He pointed towards Konoha. Now, when the Witch King occupied Angmar after the first fall of Soren, he first set out to conquer the surrounding areas. One of these was the kingdom of Arnor that held the formidable fortress of Amon Sol. The Witch King targeted this specific fortress first because it housed an object of magnificent power, the Palantir of Amon Sol, one of 7 made by Fener of Noldor before the waking of the human race. That is a nice story and most of it was known to me, but what does that have to do with this? Elrond said. You still don't get it. Naruto raised an eyebrow. This is Amon Sol and the Palantir is inside. But Amon Sol was laid to waste when the Witch King occupied Arnor. How is it still standing? Anko asked. During the secret rise of Angmar, King Alessar, knowing the entire story, gave the fortress to Urmurzur, secretly, and the Palantir that was once lost and later recovered, inside. Now both the kingdom of Gondor and Angmar had their own Palantir. The tower was returned to King Alessar as Angmar fell. I never did understand that. Elrond spoke. Why was Angmar abandoned after your ancestor died? The darkness fell on Angmar. It forced Eowyn and their 3-year-old son to flee. They hid in Bree, changing their names and appearances. They stayed there for many generations and then moved to the area now known as Kumo. It wasn't until my father that we moved to Konoha. And the darkness? Anko asked. It's somewhere out there still, waiting, sleeping, scheming. Naruto frowned. But enough of that. Let's go in, shall we? They entered the tower. The tower had 3 floors. The first had the mess hall, armory and a large room where the guards stationed there were during the day. The second floor was occupied by sleeping rooms for the guards when off duty. And the final floor was made up by only one large room. The center of the room was raised, making a platform with stairs on all 4 sides. On the platform, on a little red rug and golden tripod, a large round orb stood. The insides of the orb were as twirling clouds. Naruto approached the platform slowly and put his hand on the orb. Suddenly, it was as if all the color drained from the surrounding area. Time itself froze, as did Elrond and Anko. Naruto remained calm, but held his hand to the pommel of his sword, just in case. I see you found it. The Miss Naruto didn't even notice Roland lifted, and the image of Aragorn was shown, along with a tall, black-haired woman. King Alessar, Lady Undomiel. He bowed slightly to both. What are you doing here? Well, we came to congratulate you, for one. Aragorn spoke as Arwen went to the 2 frozen figures. You found the last of the Palantir. The orb has some powers that will prove useful in the long run. Darkness is coming, young Nazgul. Arwen spoke. And you will need all the help you can get. Find allies and find powers. You will need them. The Palantir by itself is powerful, yes. Aragorn then spoke. But that is not the sole reason I sent you here or gave you the tower. It will lead you to an object of even greater power, which will be your beacon of light in the days to come. We wish you luck. Both on your path and with your queen." Arwen winked at him, making him blush slightly. "Perhaps you should tell her before it's too late." "Perhaps I should," he said, looking at Anko. "Maybe we will meet again, young king," Aragorn said, putting a hand on his shoulder. "If we do, I pray it is like this and not in the afterlife. Not for a long time, at least. Goodbye." He and Arwen disappeared. The two moved and color seemed to return. "What's wrong?" Elrond asked Naruto, who was holding the palantir in his right hand, his left still on his pommel and looking into the distance. "Nothing. Come on, we've spent enough time here already." They exited the tower to find it surrounded. There were men, or what looked like men. Almost 7 feet tall they were. Grotesque imitations of life. "Uruk-hai," Naruto growled. "We thank you, human worm, for finding the Shine Orb. Our master will reward us. You shall not get the palantir. To arms." Inder appeared, along with the one ranger still left from the group. They, along with Anko and Elrond, drew their weapons and readied for battle. And battle they did. And the orcs came, and they fell one by one. None could withstand the might of Dunedain, the ferocity of one of Konoha's top jounin, the skill of the Nazgul tracker, and the sheer, overwhelming power of the WitchKing. But there were too many of them. For every Uruk-hai they fell, 3 more would take its place. They were getting tired, their defenses letting up. The orcs grinned wickedly. The leader, who spoke to Naruto, took a step forward, his sword posed to lop off Naruto's head. But, before he could deliver the blow, a horn broke the silence. There was rumbling in the woods, and a horn was heard, again and again. And a cry was heard, on that Naruto would remember from then on. 4th Earlingas. And with that cry, a band of Rohirrim charged through the woodland and broke the orcs in half. It was a magnificent sight. They were all on horseback, their golden armor shining in the sunlight. Their long spears piercing an orc each. But it didn't take the war-hardened Uruk-hai long to gather their senses. They turned to the Rohirrim and intended on striking them down one at a time. But they were stopped by their leader. "We tried to be merciful with you human trash," he snarled. "But now we have no choice. Call him." He laughed. A wicked horn sounded, not at all like the one the Rohirrim used, and the earth shook. The riders gathered behind Naruto and the rangers, and they all waited for the thing the orcs called. The earth shook once more, stronger this time. It was coming closer. Some of the trees burned, and the grass as well. Naruto's eyes widened, guessing right what the approaching enemy was. A humongous black creature emerged, burning everything it touched. Over 12 feet tall, with horns and a tail, its fire burning hungrily. The creature roared and pulled out a sword, which caught on fire as well. "Shit. Run." He turned to his fighters. "You cannot defeat it. Run. Run." But none moved. Seeing this, he approached the creature, throwing the palantir to Anko, who looked at him, begging him not to go. "Balrog of Morgoth. Stay away." He drew his sword and held it in both hands. "You shall not pass." The Balrog ignored his warnings and charged. "You shall not pass." A shockwave hit the ground, and the earth beneath the two opened up, taking them both into the abyss, along with the orcs. It then closed up again. The Rohirrim and the rangers bowed their heads, Jai Inder bowed to the ground, and Elrond fell to his knees. And Anko fell to her knees, crying, clutching the palantir to her chest, above her heart, tightly. The Balrog was falling still, well past several miles, and Naruto was just above him, his sword still in his hands. They clashed in midair, batting their swords at each other, neither gaining the advantage. And still they fell, slower than the orcs. The Balrog was enraged. It batted its flaming sword at Naruto again and again, Naruto deflecting every time. Finally it could battle no more and, just as they finally hit the pond at the bottom, Naruto stabbed it with his sword, creating a massive shockwave, shattering his sword in the process. He then too fell into a deep sleep, drifting away. Naruto opened his eyes to find himself in complete white. He looked around, raising his eyebrow. Even more white. "This is not exactly how I pictured the afterlife," he muttered. "And what did you expect? 72 virgins." A voice said behind him. He turned around in time to see a man that looked exactly like him get whacked on the head by a blonde woman. "You behave. Understand?" "Yes, dear." The woman then smiled at him, and Naruto noticed a fire raging in her eyes, not unlike his own. "Hello, little Naruto. My name is Eon. And that lug over there is Murazur. Well, you obviously know my name, so I don't need an introduction. Now, what am I doing here? I have stuff to do down there, you know." "What, you don't want to see us?" a teary voice called. Naruto turned to the direction to find a red-eyed woman looking at the floor, sniffing. "My own son doesn't want to see me." "Wah." She cried into the shoulder of the blonde man next to her, whose sweat dropped and rubbed the back of her head awkwardly. "Sorry about this, my wife's kinda emotional." There, honey, I'm sure Naruto didn't mean it like that." "Oh, okay then." She straightened as if nothing happened, making the others' sweat drop again. Right, no, I want to see you guys, it's just that Anko could be in trouble and I. He was cut off by a squeal. Oh, my son has a girlfriend. Yay. The redhead squealed again. So, am I dead? Well, you were close. Very close. Murizer said. But you're alive. Which is quite a feat, seeing as how you killed a Balrog. Many have failed before. So, essentially, we came here to tell you that you ain't dead yet. Thanks. Now what? Now you go back and fight those orcs surrounding you, son. The blonde, Monodonamicus said. But what, my nails? My sword broke when I killed the Balrog. But you have another, don't you? Eowyn pointed to his left palm. He looked at it to see a seal tattoo of a white tree. I forgot about that. He muttered. And Anko? Is she okay? Your girlfriend's fine, Naru-chan. His mother, Kishina Uzumaki, pointed to a pool where he saw Anko slowly going to the house, helped by Elrond and one of the Rohirrim, still crying. But she's very sad. Anything else? One more thing. We're proud of you, kid. All of us are. As Murizer spoke those words, figures appeared all over. He saw Elrond the half-elven, smiling slightly. Countless other figures, along with Theoden and Eomer of Rohan, stood there, all smiling at them. One in particular stood out. He was the largest elf there, his presence showed skill and power, and his eyes shone brightly with unbridled fire. He just nodded and muttered no regret. Naruto smiled and closed his eyes, feeling the power and force of all those around him enter him. He felt more alive, more powerful than ever. As he opened his eyes, he saw that he was still in darkness, surrounded by orcs. The leader, who somehow still survived, once again stepped forth and sneered. Look at the mighty Witch King. Where is your sword now? Here. With a quick motion he unsealed the sword from his palm. Behold Anduril, the flame of the west, forged from the shards of Narsil. The orc sneered and charged. Naruto held his ground as they approached. His helmet fell off when he landed and they could see his eyes, the mighty fire burning brightly inside them, unsettling even the strongest of orcs. As they neared, he cut and slashed, carving a path of blood. Not one managed to step 1 foot behind him. Anduril flashed and glowed in the bloodbath, lighting the whole cave up with a pale light. Soon, there were no orcs left, and Naruto sighed, before fixing the sheath of his sword on his left hip and then walking away. Anko fell to her feet, crying as the ground closed behind Naruto. Her wails were heard all the way to the house of Tizuna, where Kurenai lifted her head up and got worried about her friend. Elrond lifted Anko gently, with help from the leader of the Rohirrim, and both slowly guided her to the house. But Anko was not the only one who cried. Every warrior had tears in his eyes as they wept for the passing of their king. While walking, Anko's sight fell on the palantir she still clutched to her heart. She gazed into it, seeing only darkness. But just as she was about to draw her eyes away from the orb, she saw a silver flash of light, then another, before the orb finally shone brightly, showing Naruto fighting the orcs and then walking away. Her eyes opened, and just as she was about to say something, the earth shook once more. A part of it blew up, revealing a hole. When the dust settled, the figure of Naruto could be seen, sheathing his sword. Hey guy, whoa. He was glomped, throwing him to the ground. He looked at the attacker to see Anko squeezing his chest, tears in her eyes. He lifted her chin with his hand gently and brushed away her tears before kissing her on the lips. She smiled and kissed back. The Rohirrim and the Dunedain all cheered and songs were heard and laughter rang and everyone forgot about the darkness for that one moment. Naruto hugged Anko tightly, gently stroking the back of her head as she sobbed into his chest, trying to calm down. The leader of the Rohirrim came to him and bowed. He was a tall man with brown hair and beard, with a white horse tail on his helmet. My lord, I am Eilon, descendant of Eomer, current leader of the Riddermark. Naruto nodded. How many of the mark? Some 500 strong. They are all currently in vegetable country. News had reached us that the new Witch King was on a mission in Wave Country, so I took 50 of my best men to seek you out. Naruto frowned slightly. We now ask that you allow us to serve as your cavalry in the years to come. Naruto nodded again, writing something in a scroll. Send word to your people and have them move to what is now known as the Forest of Death in Konoha. The rest of you can go now. Just tell Camel, my advisor, that you are of the mark and he will see to you. Also give him this. He handed the scroll to Eilon, who bowed and got on his horse. He sent a pair of horsemen to the rest of the Rohirrim and took off towards Konoha. I think I'm going to need a bigger forest. Naruto muttered, making Anko giggle. Are you alright? She nodded. Come on, then, let's get back. Before he turned towards Tizuna's house, a flash of bright light in the north caught his eye. He raised his eyebrow and frowned slightly at the direction. Anko, are you alright? Kurenai ran out of the house to hug her friend when they came back. Yeah, I'm fine. What was that? Naruto, you're bleeding. She gasped. Huh? He brought his metal-plated hand to the side of his neck. Oh, must have cut myself. It'll heal. But now let's get to work. Is Kakashi awake? She nodded. Good. Let's go see him. The three went up to the room, where they found Kakashi sitting in his bed, an orange book in his hands. Naruto cleared his throat, getting the silver-haired man's attention. Kakashi was resting from the fighting, enjoying the latest edition of his favorite novel, when he heard a sound at the door. Looking in that direction, he quickly paled and threw the book behind his back, chuckling sheepishly. Hey guys. How are you? He grinned widely at the glaring looks of the two women. We're fine. Kurenai growled through clenched teeth. Which is more than you're going to be when we get back to Konoha. Ignoring the perverted literature. Naruto cut in. Care to fill us in? Huh? Fill you in on what? The current situation, Dumbus. Anko growled at him. You know, where you faced a missing nin and got hospitalized for it. Oh yeah, that. Well, short story is Abusa attacked and I used my Sharingan too much. How about you tell us the long story now? Naruto said slowly, as if talking to a child. Aw. Do I have to? Kakashi whined, making Naruto and Kurenai sweat drop and Anko growl. Yes. Yes you do. Or would you rather I leave you alone with her? He motioned to the snake summoner who was filing her nails with a kunai. I'll be good. Then start. Kakashi managed to go through the entire story without too much whining, though he was still a bit miffed at letting Zabuza go live. You defeated him, didn't you? Kurenai asked with a sweat drop at the pouting elite jounin. Well, yeah, but it's a matter of pride, you know. No, I don't know. Well, it's kinda like you getting beaten by a Jinjutsu. He earned a smack on the back of his head for the effort. I'll be quiet now. So what should we do about Zabuza? Kurenai turned to the other two in the room who had raised eyebrows, acting like she didn't just smack Kakashi. That depends. I assume you didn't let him go unscathed. Kakashi nodded with a proud look on his face. How serious were his injuries? Very serious. A week at the least. So a week. I suggest you two train your genin for the time while Anko and myself take over the protection of the clients. Kakashi nodded at his words. I suspect you will have to stay in bed for at least another day and have difficulty moving for another 4 to 6, but you should be healed enough by the week's end. Kurenai, can you teach my team the tree walking? Of course, I was about to teach my own genin that. I'll take all 5 out, but you will have to do your share when you healed enough. She glared at him, making him bring his head down and scratch it sheepishly. And Naruto, can I talk to you alone for a moment? Naruto nodded while the two ladies exited the room. Is what I heard right? He asked in a more serious voice than his usual one when the two left. If you are referring to what I assume, then yes. So one of my students really did poison me. He muttered dejectedly. So much for teamwork. You have 2 more. Kakashi shot him a look. Right, forget I said anything. How are you holding up? I feel better now. I don't know what you did, but I suspect I'll be fully healed by the end of the week. Naruto nodded his head. Just keep it easy for the day. Stuck to your odd choice of literature and don't get out of the bed if you don't have to. Kakashi nodded in agreement and pulled the book from behind him, making Naruto shake his head before he left the room. The sight that greeted him downstairs was a very peculiar one. In one side of the room were Anko and Kurenai, seated at the table, the latter failing to keep a giggle behind her lips, while the former had to support herself with an arm on the table from the laughter pouring out of her. At the other end were Shino and Hinata with their eyebrows raised and Kiba rolling on the floor, their eyes on whatever had caused the reaction in the room. Naruto turned his eyes on the sight, a smirk forming on his lips. In a corner, by a large plant was Sakura, bawling her eyes out and screeching at his wolf, Vala, who was lying down next to the plant, her tail swishing lazily behind her, with Sasuke's head locked in her jaws. Let Sasuke-kun go, you beast. You're hurting him. Naruto nearly let out the chuckles, but caught himself at the last moment. Vala. The wolf's eyes snapped in his direction. Spit it out. You don't know where it's been. The wolf followed his instructions, letting go of the Uchiha's head, hacking and coughing, as if trying to get an unpleasant taste out of her mouth. Sakura cradled Sasuke's bleeding head, splitting her time between bawling over his unconscious figure and glaring daggers at Vala and Naruto. The two paid her no mind, Naruto sitting in a chair with his wolf lying next to him, enjoying his gloved hand soft petting. Anko got up from her seat and went over to him, finding a place in his lap, leaning her back into his chest and nuzzling her head beneath his. He kissed the tip of her head softly, the two ignoring Kurenai's smiling form as she ushered the 5 genin out the door, a hand over Sakura's mouth. Forgive me, my friend, but I do not understand. Elrin spoke to the leader of the Rohirrim before the man left, while their lord and, apparently, new lady were still cuddling on the chair. Yes. Why is it that you're here? Was not Eoin's brother Ymir leader of the Rittermark? He was, but the line of Ymir died out some time ago. I am the direct descendant of the first cousin of his last heir. However, Lord Naruto hails directly from Lady Eoin herself. But how did the Rohirrim see through the ploy of King Murizer? Well, our first clue was when she and Faramir had no children. Elin said dryly. But other than that, King Alessar told us. He did. Elrin cocked an eyebrow. He came to Ymir's firstborn when he claimed the throne after his father's death. This was only a few years before his passing. His words have been carried over from father to son. He noticed Naruto and Anko were now paying attention. By your will, lord. The king nodded. My young riders, you have been deceived. But fear not, and my words do heed. For the princess you sent to be married away was not really there on her wedding day. She was taken over by the king of dark. He asked for her hand, she did agree. For her betrothed might crush her spark, she'd rather in darkness be free. So heed my word, riders, listen well. Her descendant a great scourge will quell. The aid of his horsemen he'll need, each armed and with grasp on his steed. It seems the king Aragorn did much to help me in this day and age. Naruto shifted in his chair. He leaned forward and weaved his fingers in front of him, his eyes looking in the distance. Anko moved to the armrest. But why do all this, my liege? Yelan asked. It is unclear to me. I have a theory, but it may likely turn false. The darkness I am to face is similar, if not the same, as the one he once did. Perhaps he and Mithrandir wanted to make sure their work was carried out. What does Graham have with this? He left a tome with many spells and information in my library. Alas, as they both passed, we can only guess. Yelan nodded his head and stood from his chair. With your leave, my king, I shall make haste to Angmar and deliver your message. Naruto nodded and the blonde rider bowed and left. What are we to do now, lord? Elrond asked as Jainder entered the house. We must focus on the problem at hand. If this Gato was to be left unchecked, he might bring great harm to not only this nation, but mine as well. Inder, you will take over care of our little prisoner for the time being. And send the rangers up here. The wraith bowed and left for the basement. A few moments later, the three Dunedain that were guarding the boy came. You called for us, my lord. They bowed. I did. You three will guard my new fort until such a time as you are relieved of duty by others I send. This country has little enough food to spare, so you will have to hunt and forage for your meals. I trust that will not be a problem. Certainly not, lord. Would you have specific orders for us? None but I and those bearing my seal are to enter. The fort is sufficiently defendable, even by such a small force. Elrond will take you there. When you return you will be guarding this house against dangers. I hardly trust this Gato person not to try any foul play with the builder's family. Of course. By your leave, lord. The four rangers bowed and left. Things are starting to heat up. Anko commented, returning to his lap. Indeed, my dear. Happenings here in Wave are but the first in a long series of events that might culminate in another war of the five armies, if not an all-out war of the ring. Will you be alright? She asked him, worried. I have you, do I not? She smiled at him. Then I will. I trust you will take good care of me. Then enough of this gloomy business and let's rest. She dragged him up from the chair. He spun her around and pinned her to the wall with her arms above her head. Only in the bedroom, my dear, may a king take orders. She grinned and closed the distance between them, crushing their lips together. When Elrond returned later, he found the two still making out, Anko still pinned to the same wall. He shook his head and exited the house, taking a perch on a tree near the door, hiding among the branches. The week passed by relatively calmly. Sasuke, and by extension Sakura, as well as Kiba were problematic, but the young king learned early on that if he avoided them altogether, it would be better for his sanity. And his hearing. But now the time had come to deal with the problems Wave Country had. And the first stop would be at the bridge. Naruto fixed Anjuril on his hip and, flanked on one side by Jainder, Kakashi and Kurenai, and on the other by Elrond and Anko, stepped out the door and into the battle. The bridge was quiet. Even Tazuna, who they had brought along, could see that much. Perhaps see was the wrong word, the mist that covered the entire side attested to that. Genin, protect the client. Kakashi muttered. Now. Kurenai added when none of them moved. The Genin ninja jumped around the client, Team 8, making the outer ring and Team 7 flanking him, just a rather sinister chuckle sounded through the dense fog. Hada Kakashi. And Iki Kurenai. And you even brought friends. A part of the fog cleared, showing the figures of Mamachi's Zabuza and Haku, and a few of Gato's other thugs he had sent as reinforcements. I don't believe we've been introduced. I am Zabuza, the demon of the bloody mist. This is Haku. The masked ninja waved. I don't know who these guys are, but they'll probably die today so they're unimportant. The thugs all glared at him. Greetings, Zabuza. Naruto stepped forward, his left hand on the pommel of his sword. I am Namikaze Naruto. My titles are many and varied, but the most important one is WitchKing of Angmar, so that is the one you may use. And I suppose you would like to be addressed as Highness. Majesty would be the correct term, if you do not mind. Well, Your Majesty, I suppose we'd better get to killing each other now. Before we start with that. Naruto took another step, making the thugs around Zabuza nervous. Suppose I try to bribe you to take our side in the matter? Oh? Zabuza raised an eyebrow. With what? Money? Power? As a king I can grant both. And women? But you will have to face on your own. And what about safety for me and for her? He motioned to the kimono-clad ninja beside him. Zabuza, you can't possibly. Shut up. He clapped the thug that had spoken on the back of his head. We're negotiating here. I can offer you safety within the borders of Angmar. And what about amnesty from crimes committed in other countries? And amnesty. And a harem of beautiful women. Kurenai glared at the bandage-wearing man. Don't push it. Do we have an accord, then? Zabuza, I'm warning you. The same thug from before stepped in front of the man. The boss won't like what I tell him, so you'd better listen to me, because a strong cleave from Zabuza's sword took away his train of thought and his head alongside it. I guess we have a deal. Before the other thugs could interfere, black-tipped arrows pierced through their various body parts, rendering them completely silent. Where is Gato's base of operations? There's a compound on the south side of the island. You really can't miss it. Naruto nodded, turning to Inder and Elrond. I want the outside of that compound mapped out in 15 minutes. The two nodded and ran off. Naruto. Kakashi approached the Team King. What just happened? The king must always look for new alliances. I believe Zabuza and his protege will benefit Angmar, so I offered them a place. So what do I tell the Hokage, then? That it is none of his business. Naruto. Anko admonished him. Her stern visage, however, was broken by the very large grin she had. That's not very nice. Perhaps not, but it is true. Now let us be off. My two trackers were given ample enough time to complete their task. It's only been 10 minutes. Like I said, ample time. The group of 6 walked off, leaving the bodies of the thugs behind. Hello. They also left the genin and the bridge builder behind as well. I'll just stay here, then. I'm not letting the dope have all the fun. Sasuke scoffed, trying to run after the group. Don't you dare go anywhere, brat. The old bridge builder grabbed the back of his shirt, stopping him. I'm paying you, damn it. As Naruto had said, the 10 minutes he gave Jai, Inder and Elrond were more than enough for them to come up with a map of the compound, showing 2 main groups of bandits on either side of the main entrance. Looks accurate enough. Zabuza commented after a moment. And the inside? The man just shrugged. There are anywhere between 10 and 20 bandits patrolling the halls. Haku cut in. 5 are in the main room just through the door and another 5 in his personal office. Nicely done. Naruto nodded at the girl. Anything else? He has a safe hidden in his office behind a picture of himself, but it is false. The real safe is a room across from his office, a very large room filled with riches after a small antechamber. There are always the same 2 guards in the antechamber and they do not move for whatever reason. Barring bathroom breaks, I suppose. She added, scratching the top of her head in thought. Yeah, Haku's awesome like that. Zabuza was the first one who got over his shock. Right. Naruto muttered a moment later. We split into 3 teams. Teams 1, consisting of Zabuza, Kurenai and Haku, and 2, consisting of the rest of you, will plant explosive tags on the walls closest to the bandits and charge in, catching them off guard. In the meantime I will storm the house myself. So you'll be Team 3? Zabuza asked, earning a nod from Naruto. I thought you'd like to be called Team 1. I'll leave the honor to you this time. Whenever you're ready. The 2 teams positioned themselves according to his instructions before all hell broke loose. Zabuza couldn't help but let out a sound somewhere between a giggle and a chuckle as he and the 2 kunoichi were lining the wall that, by all accounts, should have been directly behind the guards to be with excessive explosive tags. A fair number of them. Something you want to share? Kurenai raised an eyebrow at the sole male in their group. Nah, don't worry about it, I just can't wait for the explosions. The women exchanged a confused look. It's a guy thing, we all react like that. I don't think. You might want to stand back, time to go boom boom. Zabuza-sama. You too, Haku. They could practically see Zabuza's excited grin through his bandages as he made a hand seal. This is gonna be fun. With Team 2. The sound Anko let out was definitely a giggle as she lined the explosive notes on the wall herself. Kakashi, Elrond and Jai Inder shared 3 very confused glances. Is this normal? The ranger commander was the first to get his voice back. It is for her. Kakashi shrugged, getting his precious orange book out. And here I was starting to get worried about her. Seems she's alright. Boy, what are you 3 whispering about? She turned to glare at them, the last explosive note they had still in her hands. You want me to stick this somewhere it's gonna hurt? Anko, that won't be necessary. Kakashi raised his hands in a placating manner while the 2 Angmar citizens took a step back from their future queen. Good. She let her glare linger for a moment longer before she stuck the last note on the wall. Step back, boys. This should be good. With Team 3, Naruto stood by himself a little out of the field of view of the 2 guards he could see on either side of the large gate. What to do, what to do. He mused to himself, stroking his chin with his gauntleted hand. I suppose I could go for the subtle approach and use the explosions that should arrive any moment now to sneak in. He thought for a moment. Then there is also the diplomatic approach. trying to convince the guards to open the gate beforehand. Or I could go the direct route. He grinned. I never was one for subtlety. He put him helmet on and strode confidently to the gate. Stop right there. One of the guards called. What be your business here? Naruto raised his head to glare at them, making them take an unconscious step back from the glowing eyes his helmet gave him. I am here to kill Gato, all of you, and take all the riches I can to distribute as I see fit. Not necessarily in that order, my plans are flexible. He raised his left hand to point at the gate, drawing his sword with his right. Wah? Alone? Don't be daft, there's more of us than of you. But whoever said I was alone? Two explosions suddenly went out through the evening, one to the west and another, slightly larger, to the east. The two guards exchanged glances, not entirely confident of what to do, but stood their ground after a second. Are you sure you would rather not go and help your little friends? There were a lot of screams in the air, most in pain. Accompanied by some shrieks in terror and giggles in glee. They seemed to not be faring well. Our job is to guard this here gate, and this is where we're staying. Suit yourselves. Naruto shrugged and the gate in front of him sundered instantly. But Team 1, where do you think you're going? Zabuza yelled as he bisected another guard. We're not done yet. Hey girls. I'm up to 5. How about you? He yelled at his two companions as he continued carving through the masses. Does he know we're not playing his silly little game? Kurenai asked the younger girl. I am unsure, Iki-san. I do not believe he does. Please, call me Kurenai. Only if you call me Haku. Alright, that sounds fair. 8. Zabuza interrupted their talk. No, it's 7, he's still alive. There was a strange silence on the battlefield as Zabuza looked at his downed opponent, who currently had a very large sword lodged halfway in his brain. No, wait, it's just my sword embedded in his nervous system. He informed them happily before he continued. Lovely. Haku sighed. But Team 2. Anko pouted next to Kakashi as she watched Jai Inder and Elrond, who had taken it upon themselves to rush ahead of her and deal with the almost 24 opponents on their own. Calm down Anko, there'll be other battles to fight in. Kakashi didn't seem to mind, still reading his book. But I wanted to fight this one. It's so unfair. Why should they get all the fun? Anko pouted. Stand back Milady, we'll take care of these men. Elrond called back wielding his long sword with considerable skill, while Jai Inder was wielding a shorter sword in one hand and a dagger in the other next to him. You needn't concern yourself with them. But I wanted to. She pouted again. So not fair. Kakashi just turned the page of his book, ignoring the happenings around him. But Team 3. Naruto strode casually towards the main building of the compound, Anjuril in his right hand. He cut down 2 guards that broke off from the main groups with relative ease, kicking the door of the mansion in. The room was large and mostly empty, with 2 staircases at the end leading upwards. The 5 men inside all rushed Naruto at once, hoping to overwhelm him. But sadly, for them at least, Naruto was a little too skilled. He ducked under the first slash sent to him and brought Anjuril upward, slicing off the offending appendage. He left the thug to roll around on the floor in pain, clutching his missing hand as he continued the sword's arc, cutting second man across the chest, killing him instantly. The third one got a very heavy boot to the gut, sending him tumbling back and freeing Naruto to stab the 4th guard in the chest. The 5th one got 2 slices, one just barely deflected by his own blade, but the second managing to slip through his guard and kill him. The 2 on the ground were given swift deaths, and Naruto had cleared the ground floor quickly and without too much trouble. The mansion was simple on the outside as well as on the inside, in decor as much as floor plan. There was only one room on the ground floor, with staircases at the back leading upwards. There were a few tables and sleeping bags strewn around it. Upstairs there was a hallway that connected the 2 staircases with no more than 2 doors in it, one across the other. An average brown wooden double door and a smaller black one. Deciding to visit the gracious host first, Naruto threw the larger door open. 5 more thugs were in the room, grouped in front of the table, behind which a short gray-haired man was hiding. This room was also mostly empty, the only things in it were a large wooden desk, an admittedly comfortable-looking chair behind it, and a full portrait of Gato behind that was bigger than the man himself was. Hello. Naruto spoke to the guards, ignoring the small man momentarily. As you can probably imagine, you 5 are likely the last of Gato's guards left in the compound. Alive, that is. You may be thinking to yourself that you are grossly outnumbered, but in reality there is only 8 of us. But that would only make things harder for you, not easier, yes. The men were shaking now. But I am not an unmerciful conqueror. You are free to leave with your lives if you wish so. He motioned to the door behind him. Provided, of course, you leave him behind. The thugs quickly threw their weapons to the ground and moved away from Gato. Smart move. Be sure to exit to the eastern side, just to be sure to avoid anybody who might have something against you. That way. He pointed to the left when they shot him a confused look. And now onto you. Naruto gave an invisible grin as the short man before him just shook harder. Gato. Your stranglehold on this country ends tonight. Any last words? Wait, please. Naruto motioned for him to continue. I can give you anything you want. Money. Women. Power. Anything. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next part.